Right now on Sports Extra, the Falcons got a much-needed win against the Commanders after switching up some things on offense. Plus, Georgia drops its first game of the year and its first at home since 2019 as Kirby Smart loses again to Alabama. Plus, it was a close one for Tech, but the Jacks remain the only undefeated FBS team in the state of Georgia.
I mean, what's everybody else's record against them? You got it? I don't either. Like I don't lose sleep over that because those games have been like championship caliber.
The one thing I'll say about this team, for 60 minutes and then some, there still was not one person on that sideline didn't believe we were going to win the football game, right?
And the Braves season is officially over. We're looking ahead to 2026 and who could be back and what changes could be made. It's a jam-packed episode of Sports Extra. It starts right now. Welcome into Sports Extra, everybody. I'm Reggie Chatman alongside John Michaels, Grant McAuley on a sports weekend that was a little bit up and down, all things considered. But if you think about it, though, all the teams that are based here in Atlanta all did win, John.
Yeah, they did. Who would have thought that the Falcons would maybe have everybody in a good mood this week? It's good to see.
Braves, huh?
Yeah, I mean, it's what we had this year, right? But at least there was a little bit of a high note here with the way that they played in September, and I thought it was a great and emotional send-off for Charlie Morton after just a wonderful career.
All of which we're going to be talking about today on Sports Extra, but we have to talk about the Falcons first. A bounce-back win for them, 34-27 against the Commanders. It looked night and day from an offensive perspective. 332 yards and 0 points last week to 34 points, 435 yards of offense. John, what was maybe the biggest difference, and is it just the fact that Zach Robinson came from upstairs and came back down to the field?
I don't know that that was the case, but it was crisp. You know, we talked a lot about everything that was going on with the last couple of weeks of all of a sudden the play clock's down to 3 and you're clapping and you're really rushing and you never seem to be cohesive. I watched them get to the line of scrimmage today and there was 15 seconds on the play clock. Michael Penix has time to get up there, facilitate, take a look at the defense. And then Michael Penix was throwing the ball crisp and effective. He was getting back to the edge of his drop. He was throwing the football and it was getting where it needed to get to. If Zach Robinson being on the field changed all this, plant his butt down there. Tie him up. Don't let him leave the field. He needs to stay there forever.
Michael Penix was efficient in this one, 2 touchdowns, had an interception. He looked very different from last week. What do you think maybe the biggest change was for him in today's game?
I think the biggest thing is with Michael Penix, he just needs experience, and you have to keep in mind kind of where he is in his progression as a professional. And I thought that, the biggest thing is you're going to have some bad days. How are you going to respond to those? And he was able to put in a good week of practice. The accountability was there, and the changes that needed to be made were there as well. And you saw playmaking ability from the receiving core. You saw a great ground game and just a very well-balanced offense. So when those things are working, it's just going to allow Michael Penix to get comfortable and do the things he's capable of doing. I think that was what we saw. I don't know that it was altogether much more different, but you could tell how much more comfortable he was and how much other guys stepped up as well.
You could tell it was different based on how the conversation was, because you had people on social media last week saying, yo, we got to start Kirk Cousins. He's the guy going for it, which I think is absolutely insane. Especially because he was able to really deliver the ball to all the targets he needed to get it to today. Drake London as well as Kyle Pitts, who we're going to talk about. Both these guys really effective. And, John, to see Drake play that way in this moment, what was that like?
Yeah, he's the number one. You're talking about a guy a year ago that had 100 catches and 1,200 yards. We were waiting for that all year. And I think part of that had to do with, again, the offense just wasn't cohesive. You found yourself a lot of times behind the 8 ball. You're on 3rd and 7, 3rd and 8. You weren't getting ahead of the chains. Today, you were ahead of them, and you could tell Drake London had something to prove. Yep. When he catches that deep ball down the sideline, he stands up, kind of gives a double fist pump, and it's like, all right, I'm here. I'm that guy. And if he can be that guy, he's a true number one in this league. I'd argue he's a top 10 receiver in the league. Let's start using him like a top 10 receiver.
Both him and Kyle Pitts scored touchdowns today. Bijan Robinson continues to be a superstar. 181 all-purpose yards. He's number 2 in all the NFL in all-purpose yards. Can you say he's the best player in the NFL yet?
I think you can start making that argument, but you want to see him stack up more and more weeks like this. We joked on the postgame show that we got to pick a fantasy player of the game. Is it a Bijan Robinson category and then an at-large category because of how much of a difference maker he can be? But in terms of the non-fantasy variety, we know the impact he's going to make for the Atlanta Falcons on a week-in, week-out basis when he is in that receiving game, that catching game, doing stuff he did today, 100 yards to the air, and able to impact the game running as well. This is the, I think, most well-rounded player in the NFL. Let's call him that, the all-purpose weapon.
He is certainly fun to watch, if nothing else. All right, we got to go to the field. Maria Martin was in the building for this game and has more from the Benz.
Thanks, Reggie. Here now with ESPN's Mark Raimondi after a big win for the Falcons over the Commanders, which the Falcons needed this win, especially after what happened in Carolina. Thank goodness they got the win, Mark. And thank goodness the offense looks better.
It did. Raheem Morris referred to that loss last week as, quote, nasty and disgusting.
Yeah.
And this was neither nasty nor disgusting. 34-27. The offense looked the best it has all season. Kind of to the level that we were expecting going into this season. The defense did enough to win. Good performances by Penix, Robinson, Drake London, Tyler Algier, even Kyle Pitts caught a touchdown. A good day overall.
It's so important for a quarterback who's just starting out in the NFL to have bounce-back wins like this. He's going to have more bad games, but to have a bounce-back win, the way he responded to what happened against the Panthers was really important. And it looked like the offense, as you mentioned, looked closer to what we thought they could be at the beginning of the season.
Yeah, I mean, last week, even the body language for Michael Penix was off, which is not what we've experienced in the short time that he's been here in Atlanta.
Yeah.
All we've seen, prior to last week was the cool, calm, collected, nothing bothers Michael Penix. And then last week in Carolina, it was the opposite. He was, throwing the ball into the dirt. I mean, he was frustrated visibly. And this week he came out as if none of that mattered. 20 for 26, career high 313 yards passing, 2 touchdowns. His first 2 touchdowns not to Bijan Robinson of this season, which, by the way, that came on the first series of this season.
Yeah.
And 1 interception, of course, but a great bounce-back performance for Penix.
And now we can all stop talking about the fact that wide receivers and tight ends have not been in the end zone, because they have.
Yes, both of them. Yes, Drake London and Kyle Pitts gone in.
That is very impressive. Another impressive thing is Bijan Robinson, just by himself. We don't even have to explain that.
Yes.
But he finds the end zone today. He almost found it twice. I know he's pretty upset about getting caught there on that 69-yard run. But this guy really just makes this offense go.
Yeah, I mean, he probably should have broken it. Apparently he's going to get fined by Tyler Algier for allowing someone to catch him from behind. But there was one play, Maria, that was actually not far from where we are right now, where Bijan Robinson was running toward the marker, and he got turned around, and he continued running backward to get the first down.
Insane.
And I know that's maybe not a Saquon Barkley reverse, leapfrog over the defender, but I thought that was pretty incredible, just like the creativity, the ingenuity during that run, and just the ability to stay moving while people were around him and he was going back.
The way he sheds blocks, his cuts, it's mind-blowing every single time. Hopefully this offense can continue to build upon a little bit of what we saw here inside Mercedes-Benz Stadium. They get a break. Next up, Monday Night Football, the Bills on October 13th.
All right, guys, thank you very much for today's Georgia Spotlight. How about Lions running back Jahmyr Gibbs, the former Yellow Jacket and Dalton native, rushed for 91 yards and a touchdown on 15 carries in the Lions' victory over the Browns. Gibbs continues to be one of the best backs in the entire league. Grant, if there's one word to describe Jahmyr Gibbs, what would it be?
Dangerous.
I agree.
I'll go with Bijan-like.
And he's really good on my fantasy team, so I really appreciate you, Jahmyr. All right, coming up this week, we saw both Georgia and Georgia Tech drop in the AP poll after their games. We're breaking down both games after the commercial break.
And that play has been really successful for us. I think we hit Tennessee on it 3 times for conversion. We'd run it earlier in the night and run it for conversion, and we missed a block that you got to make, and they ran through and made a really good play, made a great play to stop it. But I'd do that 10 out of 10 times in terms of going for it.
Yeah, a lot of people questioning Kirby's decision to go for it on 4th down instead of taking the points early in the 4th quarter. They get stopped on 4th and end up losing by 3 points as the longest home winning streak in the nation is snapped at 33 games, 24-21 versus Alabama on Saturday. Grant and John are still alongside me here on Sunday night. Kirby drops to 1-7 versus the Crimson Tide, and when he was asked about that record, he kind of snapped back, was like, what's everybody else's record? I mean, that's kind of the point, but also not really. John, what's the problem? How can they not beat Alabama, even at home in this situation?
It almost feels like they played differently. I don't know how to explain it, but when you see guys dropping passes, you have a wide open touchdown. It should have been 28-24. You see Kirby rushing to go for it on 4th and 1. You had been running the ball at will. Take your time, line up, get your best play, and go with it. I know he said they ran that play 3 times against Tennessee, and it worked every time. Sorry, Tennessee's not Alabama, and for whatever reason, there seems to be a mental block when they see the Crimson Tide come to town or you're on the road against them. I think if you played them 20 more times, you're probably going to have these same type of outcomes every time. Georgia's just as, if not more talented than Alabama, but for whatever reason in the biggest games, Alabama just makes the play.
This is the first time they had played together in Athens in 10 years, and it looked a lot like all the other matchups, right? I mean, the struggles, the mistakes, the drop passes. I mean, Alabama was 13 for 19 on 3rd down. The defense just couldn't get off the field. Georgia had more penalties. I mean, there was a lot of different mistakes. Is it, just like you mentioned, is it something that's just in their head, a mental block against these guys?
I mean, I don't know that I subscribe to that really in any sport, but there just seem to be sometimes players or teams that just have another team or player's number, and that has been the case. I mean, the one win that Georgia has against Alabama is awfully meaningful, but the 7, it all racks up. And I guess the biggest thing is you do have the opportunity to tie the game, take the points there. I would certainly subscribe to that line of thinking, especially with so much time left. But also, if you're going to run those plays, you got to get to your best players, don't you? You got to get the ball in the hands of your best playmakers. That was my biggest question there.
Dogs with a slow start in this one, down 14 with 14 left in the second quarter. It feels like these slow starts, it was really on both sides of the ball, John. Is that something they can fix? They've got Kentucky coming up this upcoming weekend.
Yeah, I'd like to think so. I mean, Kentucky's not a very good football team, but they had slow starts even against teams like Austin Peay. They have not been sharp early on in the games, and I don't know, can you come up with a different 10 scripted? I know everybody likes to come with those 10. Find a way to get guys involved early on. It's got to change because you've still got big games on the schedule with Texas and Ole Miss and teams like that and Georgia Tech at the end of the year. You can't keep falling in a hole or you're going to end up having that bite you in the rear end.
They dropped 7 spots and come in at number 12 in the AP poll. Meanwhile, Georgia Tech barely escaped with a win over Wake Forest in overtime after a slow first half, to say the least. Here was head coach Brent Key's message to his team at halftime.
At halftime, and we had to hit a hard reset. Right? There was no yelling and screaming. There was no getting after people. I simply said to them, we have to take a deep breath, blow the first half out, and all that matters is us going out there to win the third quarter.
It certainly worked. The Jackets outscored the Demon Deacons 27-12 for the rest of the game, including overtime, proving why Georgia Tech is one of the best teams in all the ACC. Tech dropped a spot to number 17 in the AP poll, but still undefeated heading into the bye week. 5 weeks, 5 wins, 3 of them required a little bit of a comeback. Do you give them credit for the comebacks? Do you think that they should be one of these teams that should be boat racing teams, Grant?
I don't know that they're in the boat racing category yet, and I think that these comebacks are not a problem until they don't happen. So there can be something to be said for the chemistry that a team has and the ability to come back and do these kinds of things. But again, we may run into an opponent where that comeback is just not possible, and then you start to find, I think, that gut check that they haven't necessarily faced at this point in the season. But you can't take anything away from the wins and the way that they've done it. You'd much rather win than lose. That's the most obvious statement of the show, but I'll throw it out there anyway. You do have to like, I think, the ferocity that Brent Key has his group playing with.
This offense is led by Haynes King, who has become a cult favorite online and for people here in the city of Atlanta. So many of their points came after those orange slices in the locker room. It seems like this team always heats up after, I don't know, the second half begins or when Haynes King seems to get hurt or something.
It feels that way. It also felt like, Reggie, they just finally opened up the offense. Down 20-3, all of a sudden it was, a 10-yard speed out to Eric Rivers. And then you're going to throw another one. Guess what that does? That loosens up all the quarterback run game and all the eye candy that Buster Faulkner likes to have. I'd like to see you get to that a little bit earlier. You've got playmakers on the outside. And if all of a sudden you hit a 5-yard out, a 7-yard out, these plays where Haynes King can get back, put his foot in the ground, and get upfield become a lot more wide open.
Got a bye week for them this upcoming week. Virginia Tech, Duke, Syracuse, NC State, Boston College, Pitt, all left on the resume. A combined record of 14-14 throughout the season. Grant, how many of those 6 games can be wins, and is it going to be enough to get them to an ACC title game appearance?
I think that it can be, and I think that they have a case, and they have made their case in the way that they have been winning and playing, that their better days may even be ahead of them. They're building that steam, and that's why I feel like, that ACC title game, that's a very realistic possibility for them. I think a 10-win season is out in front of them. They just got to go out there and get it.
What would a trip to Charlotte mean for this Tech team?
It would be awesome. It'd be huge for the program. They'll play Miami, and that'll have me split a little bit because Miami's going to take care of their side. But it'd be great for Coach Key. I mean, he has built this the right way. Built it from the inside out. He's built with the offensive and defensive lines. And it's kind of culminated with this year. Haynes King being a senior, you kind of put everything on his back. You kept Buster Faulkner in tow. Making it to the ACC title game, it's going to have where everybody in this city believes that they finally made it.
Look, man, they're the only team here in the city that's really balling, that's undefeated in FBS. So, I mean, you got to love that. All right, switching gears. Final major golf event of the year that you saw right here all weekend long on 11 Alive. It's the Ryder Cup. Final day of the Ryder Cup. Team USA's 12-5 deficit to Team Europe coming into the final day was the largest since 1979, but big performances from Justin Thomas and Bryson DeChambeau made it close late, but in the end, this Shane Lowry putt clinched it for Europe as they retain and win the Ryder Cup. All right, coming up, it's the end of the line for the Braves, whose season ended tonight. And was it the end of the line for a couple of Braves legends? We're talking about Uncle Charlie and Brian Snitker after the commercial break. All right, welcome back to Sports Extra as we've officially made it to the end of the regular season in Major League Baseball and potentially the end of the line for some longtime members of the Braves, including manager Brian Snitker, whose contract ends. There's no word on what's next for him. And if he's retiring, and Snit says it's really just because of him.
If not, it's not their fault. I haven't approached them. So, you know what, that's as much, me, and I'm okay. You know what, if we're going to talk this week. So, and that's kind of where I wanted it to go, if you want to know the truth. So, that's on me.
Man, I love Snit. Grant John still alongside him as we roll on. Post-game, he said that the players haven't asked about it either, but they will be the first ones to know. So I'm going to ask you guys, Grant, if he decides to hang it up, do you see this being the end of the line for him, and how do you think he'll be remembered if it is?
Well, the first part of it, I think, is what he's wrestling with right now. Because if you asked me at the start of the year, I would have felt like there was a decent possibility that year 49 in the Braves organization, which is a crazy number to think about, could be the final one. Then they play poorly as the season goes along. You think, well, maybe this is going to be enough for him. Then all of a sudden they play a little bit better. And I think that maybe at that point, as that end started marching or creeping a little bit closer, that he started thinking, well, maybe I want to come back and maybe this team is capable of a little bit more. So that question is going to have to be answered this week. I believe that it will be by Friday, but obviously there are some conversations that have to be had between Alex Anthopoulos and Brian Snitker, among others. So the way I look at this is very simple. Brian Snitker is the third most winningest manager in franchise history. The only two that have won more, Bobby Cox and Frank Seeley, are both in the Hall of Fame. And as you can see right there, hoisting a World Series trophy, that's quite a legacy for any manager. So I think Brian Snitker, he may have taken some heat for some different things over the years, but it's not all on the manager. And I think that we'll appreciate him more as time goes along.
What do you think? Does he come back, and would you like to see him back?
Yeah, I think he comes back. I think kind of hedging everything that we've heard over the last couple of weeks, I think he's hedged his bet that he's going to come back. I'm with you, Grant. You would have asked me at the end of July when they were kind of out of the playoff race, I would have been like, all right, he's playing out the string. But then all of a sudden you get hot. You see Michael Harris playing good ball. Hurston Waldrop comes up from AAA, and it looks like you've got yourself another stud pitcher. I think Brian Snitker makes one last run. I'd like him to announce, I'm going to come back for one more year, and let's go win it for Snit. Because this team is talented enough to do so. Unlike the Mets, we won't choke away a big lead if we're in the lead. Just saying, I had to take it.
You had to. And we talked about it before we even went to this block. You're like, I got to talk about the Mets, and for good reason. All right, meanwhile, it was the final game, or at least we think so, for Charlie Morton. A three-time Brave, drafted here, won a World Series here. He didn't say 100% it was the end, but we can kind of assume so after an emotional finish on the mound. Here's what he had to say after coming off the mound.
Be able to be here with, Snit and Cranny and all the guys in the clubhouse, everybody that's here. I don't know. I mean, I don't know. It's unbelievable and surreal in an amazing way.
Man, I was watching him come off the mound here in the newsroom, and I was like, yo, I'm crying in the club right now, man. That was emotional stuff. If this is the end, and we assume that it is, What do you remember most about Charlie, and do you have a favorite memory covering him over these years?
I do, and I think that favorite memory I'll get to in a moment will speak for itself, but this was one of the quiet competitors of this game. 18 years in the big leagues for a guy that he told me yesterday, I kind of experienced multiple different careers and every possible outcome for a player. I wasn't sure I belonged when I got up here. I wasn't sure how I was going to stay even for a number of years, and then all of a sudden, a late bloomer became one of the most dominant strikeout pitchers in the game. That favorite moment is easy. He came over from Tampa Bay, he fronted the Braves rotation, he pitched in the World Series on a broken freaking leg,
oh my gosh,
and then apologized for not throwing more pitches with it. So an all-time competitor, all-time good guy, and that's what his teammates told me was, you will never find a more genuine person than Charlie Morton.
You see a lot of people come into Major League Baseball. Right. You're not going to see a lot of moments like that where a player gets a send-off like that moment. How fitting was it for a player of this caliber?
Yeah, it's perfect that it happened. You know, he pitches last week for the Tigers against the Braves, and all of a sudden they DFA him, and I go, wait, did they just pick up Charlie Morton? And then you understand what's going into it. It's the class of the Braves organization as to why they're doing this. There's not a lot of organizations that are going to say, hey, for the last game of the year, we're going to go bring back a guy and let him have a moment in a uniform where he had some special moments. So kudos to the Braves, kudos to Alex, and kudos to Charlie Morton.
And if you want to know about the respect that the Braves have for him, Chris Sale agreed to pitch in relief. Spencer Strider moved his locker down to give Charlie his locker back for his final run with the Braves. The ultimate professional, the ultimate shows of respect from his teammates.
Charlie Morton, what a man. We appreciate all his service here to the city of Atlanta. Coming up after commercial break, we're talking a little bit more about some football. We'll see you guys then. All right, before we go, we have to give a huge shout out to Dawsonville's Chase Elliott for winning at Kansas Motor Speedway today. Elliott seemingly came out of nowhere, racing from 8th to the checkered flag in a 2-lap overtime sprint. The win secures Elliott's spot in the NASCAR playoffs round of 8. Elliott, of course, won here back in Atlanta back in June. All right, we said we were going to talk about football, so we have to before we go. The bye week for the Falcons coming up. They've got the Bills in a couple of weeks. Have you seen enough to think they could do anything?
I feel a lot better this week than I did a week ago. They got 2 weeks to get it ready, and I think that at least the offense is clicking now.
2-2. Let's make it 3-2. Josh Allen, you're next.
It is going to be a war. Look, I just told you guys, the Saints did something.
They did.
So
yeah, they kept it close. Moral victories.
Moral victories.
Those count, right?
That's all it is. All right, guys, thank you guys so much for coming on the show. Thank you guys so much for watching. We'll see you guys next week on Sports Extra.